Hello, and welcome to It's an Artful Life. I'm your host, Jillian Rhodes. This project started with a question: do the arts matter anymore? I decided to start asking people that very question and came up with this project, an experiment on how and if people see and experience the arts in their daily lives. Is it an artful life? Let's find out. Do you need permission to be creative or to be an artist? It might seem like a silly question, but I've discovered that it's particularly relevant for a whole section of older women who have always been interested or wanted to experiment with art, but never felt like they were allowed to do so. I happen to know this because my mom is one of those women. It's a huge struggle for many like her to get to the point where they even allow themselves to start experimenting with art. And there are tons of books and support groups essentially focused on helping them get out of their own way. My mom has been doing a pretty mindful practice for a while to be able to get to where she is today. In this interview, she talks about that routine and conscious effort to allow herself not just to be creative, but to consider herself as such. Okay, so thank you for joining It's an Artful Life.
Happy to be here.
Can you just start by introducing yourself briefly? Where you're from, where you work, if you work.
Okay. I'm Janet Rhodes. I'm an American, mostly from Colorado. Recently moved, haven't found a home yet, but 35 years in the Colorado-Denver area, so I consider myself from Colorado. I currently work at home. I'm on my fourth career. My fourth career is as an artist and a poet, having been decided that I was free enough now to pursue the thing that I really love. I never thought I had talent or freedom or ability or whatever you want to call it to do that. I finally got to the place where I didn't care anymore, and so I was just going to do it anyway.
Okay, great. So, I guess you could say that you're working, so to speak, in the writing sector, poetry.
I do poetry. I play with words. I also work I have done work along the way in textiles, fabric, wearable art, paper. It's been mostly textiles and paper. I'm interested in color and learning to paint right now. That's my current thing.
Okay, nice. So, kind of considering all of that, this may sound like a strange question, but do you consider yourself an artistic person?
It depends on when you ask me. It depends on when you ask me. Whenever I get to the place of thinking that I'm going to make art with a capital A, capital M, capital A, I fall flat on my face in the mud, and that's not a good place for me to go. Do I like art? I really like art. I really like people who are artists. I like the way they look at life. I think I'm an artistic person in that when I go to museums and other places with my friends or my family, from what I can tell, I look at things really differently than them. And it seems to me I often look from a creative and a design point of view, which is not something that they share. So I guess I'm an artistic person in that I look at things in that way. So I guess, I'm trying to stay away from labels that say I am a poet or I am an artist, because those are really traps for me.
Okay, oh, interesting. So, this next question is the one that I prepped you on, and that's what is your most memorable experience of art?
I think I'm old enough that I've had several now. So I think the one that came to mind when you asked me about that is the first time I saw the World of Wearable Art show materials. I have never been to the World of Wearable Art, the WOW show in New Zealand. It was a culmination of things that I was interested in, which was textiles, design, crazy ass designs out of weird materials, put together in a show that was the New Zealand version of Cirque du Soleil, which we had already, all the family had found is a really creative, playful place. And so when I saw the world of wearable art materials and designs and what won and what they were doing, it was like it just lit me up inside. It was like being a Christmas candle. It was like having all the lights go on all at once. I've had a couple of other experiences like that, where I'm all of a sudden it's like sticking my finger in a light socket and I just light up with inspiration and creativity and joy and all that. So the world of wearable arts, the most recent one was going to Dongdaemun Design Plaza because of the kind of building it is, the way it was shaped, how it was done, and then following up on the architect's other buildings, which made me feel like I was looking at a Salvador Dali painting. So, but had the same effect on me of, wow, really? That is so cool.
Nice. Okay. So, those memorable experiences are kind of particular life moments. But do you think that you experience art on a daily basis? On just daily routine.
I think so. I have a stated purpose to look for beauty in everything and whenever I can. So I think so. I find a lot of art in nature, and so when I'm out doing my daily errands, I often look at birds, I look at plantings, I like gardens and nature and trees and things. I look at those, and I look at them with, I think, an artist's eye because I'm noticing them at all. I see them as expressions of creativity. In my case, a creator of some sort or another. So yeah, I'm always looking for beauty and art. And as far as I'm concerned, art is anything that's wasn't there naturally already. And there's a lot of that around. I look at visual merchandising and window shopping and windows and how retail is put together. I look at graphics. I look at all those things. So I would say yes, I do.
So there was just something that you mentioned there that I just kind of want to clarify. So you were talking that art is something that was not there naturally, but you also notice nature and birds, which aren't there naturally.
Right. But I think that they are the place where, for me, those are the inspirations where art comes from, is from nature.
Okay, interesting. So, kind of talking about the things that are not there naturally. So, like you mentioned, the visual designs or, the store displays and stuff. So, if you kind of...
Can I stop you for just a second? That was partly the reason I did that my definition of art in that way was in order to make the broadest possible definition of art so that something that I did could be considered art. So it was partly self-defense, was just to have the broadest possible definition of what art is.
Well, the reason that I asked that question in the way I do without defining it is because everybody defines it differently. Mm-hmm. And some more broader than others. But anyway, so kind of moving on to this next idea, which kind of uses the idea of art as something that wasn't there naturally, something designed. So, the shop displays. So, if someone were to remove all of that, so anything, if the art of daily life were to be completely removed, how do you think life would look?
Dull, very dull. I think people tend to be very routine. And I also think in this present time in the 21st century, we tend to think very digitally, which is a very bounded cut. I don't want to say cookie cutter, but we tend to think in boxes. And so I think things would be very boxed. And that if I were to use a shape metaphor, I'd say that things would be very square and rectangular. And the idea of curves and spirals and twists would be gone. And I think that would be boring. I think they give each other meaning.
Yeah, it's interesting, because you were talking about nature before, the design would be particularly square, but we might still have birds.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
Potentially.
Yeah. I thought we were only talking about human art.
Well,
Not
we are.
natural.
No,
Yeah,
it's
natural.
just a thought experiment,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. Um, I think that without art, that life would be very square, very cookie cutters. I also think that humans cannot stop themselves. I just think that it's not possible, and that people have for thousands of years taken functional items that were strictly for function, a cooking pot, and decorated them because they just like to, or because it pleases them, or, they're scribbling on the cave walls or whatever. I just think that humans can't stop themselves. So I also think that life without art is inconceivable because unless humans really greatly change what they are, it can't happen.
Well, that's interesting. It kind of feeds into the next question, which is essentially the opposite of the previous one, which is that by seeing art for some people that gives them some sort of experience, some sort of feeling, some sort of you notice beauty or something like that. So let's say that all of that art, that daily art, the design, the shop displays, that was still there, but you were unable to experience it as art. How do you think that would look?
I think that's a picture in my mind of somebody who's deeply depressed.
Huh.
Somebody who's out of their mind, out of themselves.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so the last question is pretty simple, but maybe not with a simple answer, and that is, what do you think living an artful life looks like? What does it mean to live an artful life?
Well, I think I only know what it means for me, because everybody will see art differently. For me, it's looking for beauty. And beauty is always in the eyes of the beholder. So I'm only talking about what's beautiful in my eyes, because somebody else might not think it's beautiful. An artful life is being alive, paying attention to beauty, in my case, or what I think is beautiful, and making beautiful things. And those could be either functional or completely only for fun. And to pursue that. Right now, in this stage of my life, it is to pursue that. I also think it's not about things. I think it's entirely as much about writing a life story, as we've talked before, creating a life, creating a whole story. That remains to be seen about whether that will be beautiful or not. I'm doing my best, but it all depends on the pair of eyes that's looking at it.
Yeah.
So to create both consciously and unconsciously. I do it unconsciously because I'm human. I want to do it consciously in a way that pleases me because I can't be in anybody else's eyes. I also know that we humans are enough alike that somebody will also think that is beautiful. And I also know that we're different enough that somebody else will not think it's beautiful or not give a rip. All of those.
Right. Cool.
So consciously and unconsciously in every way that I can possibly think of.
Good. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share, comments, or anything?
God help me.
It's an Artful Life will return next week with another interview. Thanks for listening.